Hello, how y'all doing? This is 709, also known as the Antenna Man. This video here is in regards to a lot of questions that I've been getting at my email address, which is about coax. How do you know how much coax to go from one box to the other box, and how much coax should you put on the antenna ball? Well, this is a response to that there. Okay. This is black cable 213, which a lot of people run, basically like the Radio Shack coax, and Belgian, a couple other people make it too. This is 213. This also is 213 cable, different color, but this 213 here is actually a Teflon, which has 2 braids, I think 3 shields in it. And this cable here is also at 213 too, and it's also Teflon, and it also has 3 braids and 2 shields on it also. Now all 3 of the cables I just showed you are 213, but what's different about them is the velocity of the cable. Now how you determine on how much cable you put on the antenna ball and between the boxes for a jumper is the velocity of the cable. That's what determines the amount of coax you should use. Now a lot of the technicians that build these boxes now realize that a person, really the average person that's running these boxes, don't know how much coax they have in there. So they have problems constantly blowing up boxes, this, that, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And so what the technicians are doing now is actually putting tuners in the box. Put your box in your vehicle, they tune your coax. What I mean say about tuning, if you got a box on each end of this coax, act like my hand is 2 boxes, they go into one box and actually tune the coax. What they're actually doing is making this coax, instead of this short, they make it long or short when they move, when they turn that tuner. This is what they're doing. And they're tuning this coax to the correct impedance for the box, so that way your input will be basically flat. So when as they twisting it, they changing this coax here, long or short. That's actually what they're doing. Then when they get it to the correct spot where your input will be flat, they leave it alone, put a drop of fingernail polish on it, something like that, let it dry, and it's done deal. That's fine, but you cannot take that box from that position or add a different piece of coax in it, because it's tuned to that. Now how you do it is velocity. The velocity of the cable. Good example now. This is regular 213 cable here that most people run. The velocity on this cable here is actually 0.66. At 0.66 velocity, it's basically telling me that you need to run everything in 3 feet. So you need to have a 3 feet jumper from box to box, 6 feet jumper from box to box, or 9 feet jumper from box to box. All those will work as long as you're in the intervals of 3s. All those will work with this 213, which the velocity is 0.66. On the antenna, you want to have 12 feet on there, or you put 9 feet on there. It will work just the same, because the velocity of this cable is 0.66. The velocity means that the speed in which the signal travel through the cable. Now, the velocity of this cable here, Teflon, is actually at 0.78. At 0.78, I can use a shorter amount of coax that would do the same thing. Instead of using a 3-foot jumper, I probably can get away with a 2-foot jumper and it'd be precisely right. And instead of having a 9-foot coax on my antenna, I probably can get away with, instead of 9, probably be like 5 feet. I have to do the math to actually figure out exactly what it is. But this cable here is at 0.78. Good velocity. That's the velocity of this cable here. Now this cable here, which all these cables are 213. 213 is the size of the cable. All these cables are 213, but the velocity of these cables are different. So you will not be able to use 3 feet on this cable here or even on the other cable, because the velocities are different. The velocity on this cable here is actually 0.70. So you got 3 different 213s with 3 different velocity, and the velocity is actually what determines the amount of cable you will use in between the boxes. Now if you get the velocity correctly and you cut the cable to the size that you need it, your input will be flat. Meaning that if I got 120 watts coming out of my 3 pin going into my 4 pin, then I actually have to tune the coax to be correctly. Other than that, I would have 120 watts coming out of my 3-pin going to my 4-pin, and I might have only 100 watts going into it, so I'm losing 20 watts. So that's 20 watts of drive, and also my input would be at 20 watts. You don't want it. You pay for all your watts, get all your watts. So you would tune that coax there, and by tuning that coax, you actually put that coax at the correct amount of impedance that the box wants to see. So that way you would get all that 120 watts of drive going into that box, and your input would be at 0. And basically the same thing would be on the antenna also, because what's happening on the antenna is, let's say we go with the 213 cable. So on 213 cable, at velocity 0.66, you need to put 12 feet on that cable on the end of that. Regardless of the antenna, 12 feet cable got to be on there. And you can actually just tune that cable. Should be SWR side to be flat at 1.0, meaning that no watts is being left behind. You got a 12 watt radio, all 12 watt is going out that antenna. That's what that means. So that's what actually determines the amount of cable that you put in between it, and also on the end of the ball. It's the velocity of the cable. Now, back a while back, 50s, 40s, whatever, it basically only was a couple of different size cables that was out, and basically that was 213, and that's the reason everybody say, man, you need to put a 3-foot jumper between that box, because at the velocity at 213, which was 0.66, the velocity that would determine that you needed actually a 3-foot jumper. So that's what you would use. Now, if you're using 213 cable at velocity at 0.66, which is like Radio Shack cable, Belgian cable, and that's the formula for that would be basically 3 feet. Now, if you go into other different cables, 217 and other velocities at 213, 217 cable, it's a bigger cable with a different velocity. It's also black, but it's a little bit bigger. But now, all the 3 cables that I just showed you are 213, but they got different velocities, so I had to use different size length of cable to have my impedance correctly and my input flat. I like to get every watt of mine, so I run all mine flat. My input flat, my output flat. So that's basically telling you. Now, if you have any other problems or questions, you can also reach me at my email address and leave any kind of questions or comments. If you have a problem with trying to figure out the velocity of a cable, or even trying to get your input down, you can also leave a question at my email address or video, and I get back with you and I help you along with it. And if you're around the city of Chicago and you still can't get it right, you can always come and get me at a small fee. I will adjust that and fix that correctly for you. Thank you very much, and I hope this video will be somewhat helpful to you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Keep those questions coming.